are not usually used in the preparation of thesis. So what are commonly used in the preparation are the measures of central tendency, which is the most common, is the mean, and of course the measures of variation. And that is where I would like to focus my discussion today. Okay? Okay. So now let's have the measures of variation. Okay, can you see that? Okay, so measures of variation. So let's understand this concept by having this data set. Okay, so kindly get your cell phone. Can you please calculate the mean, determine the median for this data set? Can I give you 5 minutes to calculate? Okay, so I hope you are now calculating the median and the mode. So what is n? What's the median? And what's the mean? What is our n? Anybody? What is our n? What's the value of n? Miss Alimbo, Rochelle, what's the value of n?
Lang po, ma'am.
What is the value of n?
Wait lang po. Nagkukumpuso.
Oh,
Wait lang po,
what's
ma'am.
the
Ay,
value of n?
nag-ano pa kasi ako, ma'am. Ala, ay nagluko na ang aking cellphone. Nalumpat na.
Okay, Miss Alimbo. Marinel, what's the value of n? Marinel Haso?
It's 9 po, ma'am.
Okay. So the value of n is 9. You only have to count the number of scores. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so this is for set A. What about for data set B? What is n?
19.
It's also 9.
9.
Okay. So what is the median for data set A? So since the scores are already arranged in ascending order from 15 to 24, so the median or the middle score is, we have 20. So median is 20. What about in dataset B? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we also have
20 din po.
20 po, ma'am.
the median is also 20. What
20.
about the mean? What about the mean? Have you calculated the value of mean?
Twenty din po, ma'am.
Ano?
20.
Okay, so 20 and this is also 20. Okay, so if you notice, the data sets have the same characteristics. They are all 9. They have a median value of 20 and mean of 20. So looking at the data sets statistically, you would say that they are the same. Okay. However, if you will look at the closeness of the scores, which of the scores are closer to one another? Is it A or B? Which of the scores are much closer to one another?
A po, ma'am.
Set
Okay.
A po, ma'am.
Okay, so the data set A would show that the scores are closer to one another, while for dataset B, you would notice that the scores are quite dispersed, okay? Or they are quite scattered because the lowest value is 3 and the highest is 40. So there is a big difference between the lowest score and the highest score. However, for letter A, from 15 to 24, so they are much closer to one another. Now, if you will um, illustrate these two data sets, dataset A would have an almost perfect curve. Okay. However, for dataset B, since the scores are too scattered, then it is somehow flatter. In the curve is flatter than for the set A. Okay. Now, this is now the purpose of determining the measures of variation. So the mean, the median would only tell us the center of gravity of the data set, okay? As represented by, in this case, by the median and the mean. So what is the central tendency of these two data sets represented by median and data set? However, looking at the how scattered, how spread are the scores are, that would not be determined by the central tendency or the measures of central tendency. So we can say that the data set A is more homogeneous than the data set in B. Okay? And that's why in our classes, di ba, in classroom situation, we divide classes into either homogeneous and heterogeneous classes. And that would be displayed or manifested in terms of their scores in every test. If you can see that the scores during tests are always closer to one another, then that would tell that the class is really homogeneous. However, if the scores are too scattered, too spread, then you would say that the class is heterogeneous. Okay? So that is the purpose of the measures of variation. So a measure of variation is a measure that indicates how the scores are spread out along the scale of the distribution. So the measures of variation are simply the measures of spread. Another term for this is the measures of dispersion. So pareho lang tabi. Okay, variation or dispersion. The measure of or the characteristic of a certain distribution or data set in terms of how dispersed, scattered, or spread they are. Now, there are different measures of variation. Okay, the first one is the range. So when we say range, it refers to the difference between the highest value and the lowest value in ungrouped data. And the difference between, so take note that we are referring to two types or two sets of data. We have the ungrouped and we have the grouped data. So in a group data, we are referring to range as the difference between the upper boundary of the highest class interval and the lower boundary of the lowest class interval in a group data. Okay. Let's say, for example, if we have 10 to 15, 16 to 21, 22 to 27. Okay? So interval is 6. So the difference between the upper boundary of the highest class interval. So this is the highest and this is the lowest class interval. I hope this is only a review. Ano? Review ta lang ini ha. So the upper boundary of the highest is 27.5. So these are the upper boundary. And the lower boundaries, this is 9.5, 15.5, and this is 21.5. Therefore, the range for the group data is equal to the range of the upper boundary of the highest, which is 27.5, minus the lower boundary of the lowest class, which is 9.5. So the range is 18. Okay? So this is the range, 18. While for the ungrouped data, the difference between the highest and the lowest. Now, considering this data set, what is the range for data set A? Okay. So what is the range for data set A? Here. So the lowest is 15, the highest is 24. So 24 minus 15, the
9 po.
range
9 po,
is
ma'am.
9. Okay. For the data set B, 40 minus 3, the range is
37.
37.
37. Okay. So, ganyan lang kadali ang range. So, however, range is a weak measure of variation. It can be easily determined, but it's a weak measure of variation because the difference would not tell you how scattered the values are. So, ano ngayon ang ibig sabihin if the range is 18? Di ba? So, yun lang ang information na makukuha natin. That the difference between the lowest and the highest score is 18. So, how close, how scattered, how dispersed the scores are, we do not know. Okay? So, the same thing with the data set A and B. The information is too little to tell with the range of 9 and 37. Okay? So, among the different measures of variation, range is seldom used because of its weakness. Okay, so take note of that. Then next to the range is we have the interquartile range. Okay, so the interquartile range indicates the distance between the two values, which determines the middle 50 of the observations within the distribution. So the difference between the third quartile and the first quartile, or the formula is interquartile range equals quartile 1 and quartile 3 minus quartile 1. So the interquartile is actually equal to the median. Okay? But the interquartile would only tell us getting the score in the 75th percent of the score and the 25th percent of the distribution, or the quartile 3 and the quartile 1, and get the difference. That's the interquartile range. Okay? However, the information is also too little to determine the uh, the dispersion or the spread of the different scores. So next to range, interquartile is also seldomly used because of the little information that it would tell us with the result. However, between range and interquartile range, the information in the interquartile is quite greater than the range, because for the range we only determine the difference between the highest and the lowest. However, for the interquartile range, we also consider the Q3 and the Q1 and get the difference. At least we have an information in terms of what is the score in the Q3 and what is the score in the Q1, and at least give some comparisons. Okay? Then we also have the mean deviation. So the mean deviation is used to compute how far the values in a data set are from the center point. And looking at the heading, it's mean deviation. So meaning to say, we are looking into the values in the data set from the mean. Okay, the center point that we are referring to here is the mean. So let's say, what is the difference going back to our data set here? If our mean is 20, then we get the difference between every score in the data set, get the difference between these scores in the data set and the mean. And that is the mean deviation. Okay? So 15 minus 20, we have negative 5, we have negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 2, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? However, we cannot be dealing with negative values as a result of a measure, and therefore we get the absolute value. So if this is negative 3, so that is equal to 3. Tama? Tanda ta paano ang mga absolute value. Then we get the difference, or we get the total. Then if you notice, that would be always equal to 0, which is a very distinct characteristic of a mean deviation. So mean deviation refers to the average deviations of a data point from the central point, the mean, the median, and the mode of the data set. So it could either be that the mean deviation would be from a mean, median, and mode. However, it is commonly termed mean deviation because most of the time the deviations are usually taken from the mean. Okay? And the score for this, or the total, is always equal to 0. So take note, in the mean deviation, we get the absolute value to do away with the negative values. Okay, then next is we have the variance. So variance is a statistical measurement that tells us the degree of spread between numbers in a data set. The more spread the data, the larger the variance is in relation to the mean. Okay, so take note. So mas scattered ang mga scores, the larger would be the variance in relation to the mean. Okay, and variance also measures how far each number in the set is from the mean or the average, and thus from every number in the set. And is calculated by taking the average of square deviations from the mean. By the way, I did not introduce anymore the formulas because there are several free calculators online. If we will only key in, anyway, sige, let's just finish this and let's have one free calculator online. I think that would be accessible to all. Unless, would you like to solve problems manually? Okay, this is the last measure of variation, the standard deviation derived from variance, and tells us on average how far each value lies from the mean. So the standard deviation, the variance is symbolized by s squared for the sample and for the population. Okay? So this is sigma squared. Ito, mali, mali. Hindi dito. It should be sigma squared dito sa labas. So this is for the population, this is for the sample. Okay? Now for the standard deviation is simply S, because standard deviation is equal to the square root of the variance, which is S squared. Okay? So the square root of, so S equals, yan. So standard deviation is the most reliable measure of variation. That's why if you will browse journals, you would notice that the most commonly used measure of central tendency in comparing data are the mean and the standard deviation. Okay? But please take note that should not always be the case. Okay? Be analytical in terms of how are you going to decide whether the central tendency to be used is really mean, or because it might be median, or it might be mode. Okay? So take note, analyze each score. Okay? See to it that the central tendency is representative of every single score in a distribution. Okay? So again, if we go back to our example, so we can say that 20 is a representative for 15. 20 represents each of these scores in the distribution, and that's why it's called the central or the center of gravity. On the other hand, we also have here the median is 20. 20 also represents 3 and 20 represents 40. Okay? So as I have told you, it's not always the case that the mean is always the measure of central tendency to be used in a certain data set. So be analytical when to choose the mean, the median, or the mode. Okay? Now, let's have some examples. Any questions so far? Before we still have 26 minutes. Let's have some examples online. Let's look for the calculators online so that you will not be solving manually. What is more important is your analysis on the data set. Okay? And that is actually the exercise I will give you. So I will give you a certain data set, compute, then you discuss, you analyze. So ma-practice na kita sa thesis natin on how to analyze result. Okay? For a while. Let me look for a free calculator. Hello? I'm sorry. Nakamute pala yung ano ko, speaker. Have you, ano ba ang narinig nyo lang sa mga pinagsasabi? Akala ko all the while, akala ko naka-on ang speaker ko. So as I have said, there are several calculators online, so you can just select. So I will not be introducing anymore the how to compute manually because there are several calculators online. So you only have to select which is the most convenient on your part to use. Okay, so what is more important is your analysis on the results of the data. Okay, but for the information of everyone, I also would like, although we will not be thoroughly discussing how to um, creating frequency distribution, but I think since in your descriptive research, most of the time you will be dealing also with group data. Okay? So this is how you're going to discuss a group data. First, in your data gathering, okay, take note of that ha. Kasi ang frequency distribution is commonly used when you are dealing with age. Okay? When you are dealing with age. But for you to come up with the most, not most, but for you to come up with at least an ideal distribution is for you to indicate in your survey instrument an open-ended portion for the age. Okay? Take note of that. So your questionnaire should be open-ended in terms of the age. Okay. Um, Yan. Dapat ganyan siya. So, indicate your age. So, the respondent should indicate his or her age. Because what happens is, there are some instruments that the students would prepare indicating the range already for the age. Tama? So, ang iba, naka-prepare na siya. Halimbawa, 21 to 35 or 30, let's say, 36 to, ilan bang different? 14. So this is 50. Okay, so 50. Then 51 to 65, something like that. So naka-prepare na siya. Then the respondents would only check. Okay? However, during the pre-orals, some panel would comment that it should not be. Okay? Na parang the distribution or the classes or the intervals prepared for the age are inappropriate, are not enough, are inadequate, are not properly grouped, something like that. Those are the comments that would come up during pre-orals. So, to make it safe, ito dapat ang nilalagay nyo sa instrument. Okay? Even for the length of service. Take note of that. Ano? Kasi kadalasan hindi kita namamali. Length of service, it should be open-ended. So, i-indicate dapat ng respondent ang length of service niya. And also, be very specific also with your instruction. So, length of service, then parenthesis, number of years only. Ayaw na niyusan months. Ayan. Kung 20 years, 18 years. Then, from the open-ended entries na nakuha nyo, you will now organize your own distribution. Okay? Let's say the highest age is 64 and let's say the lowest age is let's say 20, ano bang, ay, ano ngayon? Let's say 22. Okay? So, we get the range. Ano? So, highest age minus the lowest age. So, we have 42. Tama? Then, divide this in terms of kung pira ang classes na gusto niyo magibo. Pag sinabing classes, ito na range. Ayan. These are the classes. Okay? Or these are the, at times they would call this the intervals. Class intervals. And then, so, out of 42, pira ang gusto niyo na classes na gibuon. So, kung gusto niyo mag-come up since 6, then you should have an class interval of 7. Meaning to say, take note, it's trial and error. Tama? Trial and error. Magibo ka mo sa classes niyo. So, if you will start with 22, you add 6. So, plus 6, you have 28. Then, this is 29. So, initabi, ini na 7, amin ni ang difference sa dinadua. 22 plus 7, 29. Plus 7 ka naman, 36. Plus 7, 43. Plus 7, 50. And this is 29 to 35. If you notice, intiro tabi ini puro ina plus 7, di ba? Yan. Plus 7, plus 7. So, amo yan na 7. So, 36 to 42, 49, and this is 50 to 56. Then this is 57 to 62. Ay, 63. Tama ba? Okay. So if you notice, 'di ba? We have already 6 classes, 'di ba? Unom na siya. So gusto ta 6 classes lang. But if you notice with the distribution, this is already 6 pero lain ta pa naaabot ang highest score na highest age na 64. So meaning we have to add another. Okay? So meaning madagdag tita sa row and that will become 64 to 70. However, if you will look at this distribution, sa tingin niyo, madali ba para sa iyo mag-discussin pito na ano? Kasi you will have to mention each of this in your paper. Di ba? So imagine if you will be discussing seven classes. So paano taniyan ini mapapadali? So we lessen. So to make it easier for you to facilitate the discussion, we will have to lessen your classes by doing this. Ito ang gagawin natin. Ito. So instead of 22 to 28, gawin na lang natin siyang ay, nawawala. Live pa lang pwede. 35 and below. Then, 36 to 42, 43 to 49, 50 to 56, then 57 and above. Okay? So ito, na 57 to 70, captured na tabi siya didi. Okay? Then, ini naman na okay, then ito, 22 to 29 will be captured by 35 and below. Diba? So at least, it would now be easier on your part to discuss 5 classes only than discuss all the 7 classes. Okay? However, you can only do this if your instrument is open-ended like this. Okay? And your statistician will help you determine your classes. So, dapat aram lang niya kung piraan highest score, lowest score, and piraan values and end. Okay? So, the same thing with the length of service. Let's say the length of service ranges from okay, so let's say for length of service, igwa nga yasin, ang mga na-start pa lang. Ibutang nyo na nga 1 year. Okay? Or igwa naman ang iba less than a year, di ba? Less than a year. Let's say may 3 years, 5 years. Let's say ang pinakataas is 28 years. So get the range again. The highest minus the lowest, so you have 27. And have only 3. Baliktad. Have only 3 classes, so have a interval of 9. So, kung gusto mo na tulo lang, paano ka magkakaigwasin tulo lang na classes? It could be 10 years and below, then 11 to 20, and 21 and above. Ayan. So, tulo lang. Then you write here the frequency and you write the percentage. Okay? So, for descriptive statistics, tulo lang naman na there are only 3 statistical tools that are commonly used. We have frequency, percentage, and the rank. Okay? So, ito lang ang pang descriptive statistics. Commonly. Then, if we are dealing with extent, level, then meaning to say you will be using weighted mean. Or mean lang, just the average, getting the average. Okay, so any question? So the frequency distribution that you would be working on your paper are usually would come, ano ba ang mga profile na hinahanap natin usually from the respondents? It's age, length of service, it could be monthly income, or it could be number of members of household or household members. For as long as you'll be dealing with numbers, then you might be having frequency distribution. Okay? So this is what we call the frequency distribution. Okay, so any questions so far? By the way, have you browsed the syllabus I posted in the Google Classroom?
Yes po, ma'am.
I already posted the syllabus in the Google Classroom. And if you notice, I adapted the syllabus because there's no more time to prepare for a separate one. So I adapted, Dr. Derry and I adapted the syllabus of Dr. Rica Fort, who is also handling another statistical methods in 2 to 5 time slot. However, I noticed it late, the arrangement of the topics. Okay? Kaya kung if you will look at the topics, ang determination of sample using the Sloven's formula was placed last. Di ba natapos na natin yon in the basic discussion? basic concepts of statistical methods, I already tackled determination of samples using Slovin's and proportional allocation. So please allow me to make some modifications on the orders. I'm saying orders because even in the final part of the syllabus, I think I will have to make some modifications. So please forgive me for the word adapted ADO because it's only now that I realize that it should have been ADA because I will make some modifications. However, yun, at least I inform you. Ano? So anyway, at this point, please allow me. Can I ask for your permission to make some modifications on the syllabus based on the importance of the topics? I just don't I forgot if there is regression analysis in the final part of the syllabus. So, after this, and if you also notice, sa syllabus kaya nauna ang variations kaysa measures of position. However, the position is parang katakod pa nga siya katakod pa dapat ang position ng central tendency. Kasi sa measures of variation, di ba may mga kaupod na dito na quartiles, interquartile range. So, dapat ang quartiles na-mention na muna sa position before siya i-tackle sa measures of variation. Anyway, so after this, I will give you the exercises. I will give you a certain data set and the exercises that I will give you is a fictitious data on the result of the IPCR. Okay? On the result of the IPCR based on fictitious indicators also. But I'm sure you can discuss because all of you can relate with the indicators. Now, how do you discuss? Over down. So we still have, it's already 8:01. Can you give me 5 minutes? I just would like to discuss the 4 important parts of analyzing the data. Paano ba kita mag-analyze ng data? So there are 4 things of analyzing the data. Do I have your permission? Can you give me 5 minutes to extend? Okay, thank you. Okay. So there are 4 parts on data analysis. Okay? I discuss this usually sa research methods. Okay. First level. You have to discuss the condition. Ano ba ang sinasabing condition? The condition is based sa result ngayon ng data niyo. Anong edad ang may pinakadamo? So let's say, example lang ito 47 or 82% or 82% of the women belong to, let's say, 60 to 65 years old. That's the condition. Tama? First level. Or another. The performance of the employees based on their IPCR is 4.8 or outstanding. Okay? So that's the condition. Ano pa ba? The academic performance of the students in English is 89%. Okay? So that's the first level of interpretation. Yan, data analysis and interpretation. Now, what is the second level? After you have determined the first level, the second level is to determine the cause. So what are the causes of the condition? Okay. So sa tingin niyo, ano gusto sabihin? 60 to 65 years old, performance is of the IPCR is 48%. So meaning to say, if the respondents are of meaning to say if the women are 60 to 65 years old, let's say the study is about uh, the women participation on crop production, diba? Women's participation on crop production, let's say. So 60 to 65 years old, or most or majority of the respondents, or 82% of them belong to the age group 60 to 65 years old. So meaning, so what's the first level interpretation? This is the condition. So what's the interpretation? It says that most of the women respondents are senior citizen, are already in their old age, and yet they are still still involved on crop production. Okay? So what could be the causes? Why is it the 60 to 65 years old women are still involved in crop production? So what do you think are the causes? So you identify all the causes, then discuss one by one. So it could be that these women are the head of the family. So baka mga balo, kaya sila na ang tumayong head of the family. So meaning, so if you can validate this, if your profile also include the civil status of the women. So maybe these women are widows and that's why they are taking charge of the livelihood of the family. What else? Or maybe it's their hobby. Okay? They are old, but planting crops is their hobby. So it could be the cause. Now, since these are the causes, what do you think, which is actually the third level, what do you think are the effects? So, based from the causes that you identified, you discuss now the effects. If you are the head of the family, what are the effects of planting crops? You plant crops because you are the head of the family. Of course, you earn income by planting crops. Okay? So if you are a widow, and that's why you are a widow, that's why you are the head of the family. Or what are the effects if it is your hobby? And then the fourth level is you recommend or suggest. So suggest measures. So it's either if the result is good, suggest something to sustain, okay? If not good, then suggest measures. Yan. So these four levels of interpretation is according to Calmorin. Okay. So maybe you can look for the book of Calmorin. I just forgot the year. Well, anyway, You can look for this online. Okay? Then the last one, after all the discussions that you have, the last is, actually sinabi ni Kalmurin apat lang. Dinagdag ko lang ini. So for me, this is the fifth. These are your related studies that would support the findings. Okay? In every discussion, the last part of your discussion is always to relate the findings to the existing studies. It's either you affirm or you negate the findings of the previous studies. So kung ang result ng paper mo is the same with the previous studies, then you can say that the findings of this study are similar, or the findings of this study affirms the results of the study of Ong, let's say, like that. Or if the findings are opposite, then you say the results of this study negates or negate the findings of the study of Okbian. Because, ayun, bakit nagkaiba? If they are similar, ano ang pagkakapareho? Okay? So, all throughout tabi yan. From SOP1 to SOP, to the last SOP. And also, for the information of everyone, just last week, we have already released that the thesis has already has already a new format. So this time, our thesis will be in the IMRAD format: introduction, methodology, results, discussion, and the conclusion and the recommendation. But the rest of the requirements in terms of the number of literature and studies, they are still the same. The preliminary pages are still the same. The appendices are still the same. Format lang talaga ang nabago. Okay? Anyway, when you have your thesis writing, the dean would usually orient the students who are in thesis writing and in dissertation writing. Okay, so this is how you would discuss and interpret the exercises that I would give you. Okay, so I will just inform you if I have already posted the assignment. Okay? So ito din ang hahanapin ko sa discussion nyo. Ano? Anyway, short lang naman yun. Kasi yun lang gusto kong makita on how you analyze and how you discuss. So given the figures, bring out all the stories behind the figures. That's the main purpose. That is actually how you interpret the data. When we say the performance of the employees is 4.5, outstanding. So what's behind 4.5? Ano ibig sabihin ng 4.5? Bakit 4.5 outstanding ang performance? Ano ba ang mga nakatagong kwento sa likod ng 4.5? Okay? Because if the panel would read that the performance is 4.5, so anong story ng 4.5? Okay? Kaya, yun. Para magkaroon ng kwento ang 4.5, ano ang causes? Bakit naging 4.5? So, ibig sabihin, masipag yung employee, works beyond official time, finishes the job on time, works promptly, submits report on time, submits report without correction, works independently. Those are things. Those are the causes. So, anong magiging effect? So, meaning to say, baka naging awardee siya dahil sa pagiging 4.5 niya outstanding. So, isa yun sa effect. Siyempre, pag mataas ang performance, mataas ang PBB. So, anong effect? Another, incentives. Baka nagkaroon siya ng certificate of commendation. So, those are effects. So, ngayon, ano ang fourth level? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Of course, it's a good thing. So, you would suggest things in order to sustain the 4.5 outstanding performance of the teachers or of the employees. Okay? So meaning to say, paano siya magiging masusustain? Stronger admin support, di ba? Always provision for capability building activities, more incentives and rewards, merits for the employees so that the employees will sustain also their good performance. And fifth level, you look for a study related to the topic. Okay? Any question? So it's already 8:14. By the way, at this point, meron na ba tayong groupings? You are 22. How many members do we have per group? Apat? Tama ba? 4? If we will have 4 each group, we will have 5 groups. Kaya lang you are 22, meaning to say two groups will have 5 members each. MAT, ang mga MAT, THE, saka ang MEDM, baka maybe you can organize yourselves as one group. Can you please post the groupings tabi sa Google Classroom para di na ako mag-backread sa Messenger, sa GC na, sa GC ta. Please. So are there questions? Can I stop this first? Okay, yes, Shan Benedict. Any question, Shan?
Ma'am, ask ko lang po if during exam
Okay.
po natin sa midterm is pwede po kaming gumamit ng calculator.
Sure. Yeah, actually, our midterm is on March 23. Can we have a face-to-face midterm? And that would also be on Monday 5 to 8 or 5 to 7.
Opo, ma'am. Salamat po.
Okay. Well, anyway, matagal pa naman ang March 23, so I will just give the announcement regarding the midterm examination. Okay, other concerns? Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Espinosilla. What do you mean? During weekends? Uh, I will be giving only as one set of examination, so I don't think that schedule would be possible. That's why I told you that the midterm is on March 23, so maybe there can still be, I can make other arrangements regarding the midterm exams. But I would like the midterm exam to be written in a test booklet because I find it very difficult reading online. Sa totoo lang. Kaya lang I organized a Google Classroom para madali ko din mahanap ang mga requirements ko. Or ganito na lang, can you visit Sorsu one of these days? Maybe you can get a test booklet, then I can give you a take-home midterm examination. Pero nasa test booklet, please. Kaya mas madali ko siya basahon. Is that okay with you?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay. So, kuha na lang kayo sa office. 5 pesos lang naman ang test booklet. So you can get a copy, a booklet from, or maybe you can already get two pieces para diretso na sa kung ano pang mga requirements ng mga long exam halimbawa. Okay, so then you can just have, I can give you the take-home exam, but we will have to settle for the submission of the test. Kasi you can submit the test on a weekend. I will leave a drop box sa guardhouse na lang siguro or dito sa office kung open din lang siya. Anyways, Angelo is always at the office every Saturday. Ako tabi dili. Because I work Monday to Friday, so I am no longer required to report to school on a Saturday. Only Angelo is in the office every Saturday, unless it's holiday. Okay, so if you have other concerns, so please just chat me in the GC. Okay, so anything else before we call it a night? It's already 8:20. Okay, can we open our cameras for the
Ay, ma'am,
evidence of
i-question
attendance?
po.
Yes, Mr. De Vera.
Magpo-post po kayo ng activity po ngayon.
Ano?
Kung magpo-post po kayo ng
Actually, yeah. Actually, di ko pa siya natapos kasi I have to think of indicators na makarelate ka mo intero. Igo pa lang ako sa tulo na variables, pero ang indicators niya sa naibutang ko wala pa. So please give me until Wednesday. Okay? Please. Is
Okay
that okay?
po.
Okay, so thank you. Is that okay with you, Mr. De Vera? Sean?
Opo, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so please open. Everyone, please open your camera. Okay, in 1, 2, 3, smile. Another one. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
Good night
Thank
po.
you.
Bye po.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night.